Hello friends, welcome to this tutorial. My name is Salim Aftab. Today I'm going to show how to set up Amazon EC2 command line interface tools on Linux. The approach I'm going to take is I will be creating a new Amazon Linux AMI and then we'll be setting up the EC2 command line tools from the OS terminal. Let's get started. From the AWS console, I'm going to launch the EC2 dashboard. And before I create a new EC2 instance, I'm going to create a new security group. If you already have a security group, you can use it. But for this lecture, I'm going to create a new one. I'm going to use the default VPC. To establish connection from the OS terminal, I need to set up the inbound rules. So I'm going to add a new rule. SSH is the connection type which I'm going to choose, which is required for the OS terminal to connect to the EC2 instance. The port is 22. I can choose the source IP as my IP or anywhere. If I choose my IP, I should be able to access only from this particular IP address. So I'm going to choose it as anywhere. I'm going to create security group. Once the security group is created, I'm going to go back to my EC2 dashboard and create a new EC2 instance. I'm going to create Amazon Linux AMI instance, which is a free tier for first year. When you sign up with Amazon, it comes with inbuilt Python, Ruby, Perl, Java, Docker, PHP, MySQL, and also command line interface tools within it. So I'm going to choose Amazon Linux AMI. I'm going to choose T2 micro instance type, which is free, which I can use one CPU with 1 gig RAM for 1 year. I'll be choosing number of instances as 1. I'm going to use the default VPC. I can choose any of the availability zones which is near to my place of work. However, I'm going to set it as default, and I'll let Amazon assign a public auto assign a public IP. I've already created a IAM role which I'm going to use that. If you do not have one, you need to create one for the EC2 instance to work. Now I'm going to choose a shutdown behavior as stop or terminate. So whenever whenever you shut down the EC2 instance, you can either terminate or only stop it. If you terminate, you're going to lose the entire data that is on the ABS volume, and you need to create a new instance to work on. So I'll be choosing a stop, which is the default one, and here you can enable accident termination protection. This is basically required when you have more than one user accessing the EC2 instance, and one of the user accidentally terminates the instance. So if the instance is terminated, you lose the entire content of the EC2 instance along with the data. So to prevent that, you can enable this. Once enabled, it will not allow anybody to terminate the EC2 instance. By default, basic monitoring is enabled. However, if you want additional monitoring from using CloudWatch, additional charges do apply. So I'm going to leave it as unchecked. I'm going to use a shade tendency. And in the advanced details, if you want, you can add any of the bash scripts that you want the EC2 instance to run once it is started. Presently I'm going to leave it as blank. We will be running the scripts when we launch the EC2 instance from the terminal. Now I'm going to add the storage. For the first year, we are eligible for 30 gigs of EBS volume space. So The two kinds of volumes types that are available to us for free are magnetic and GP2. So presently the default is 8 gigs with 24 IOPS. That's one IOP, 3 IOPS per gig. So 8 into 3 is 24, and the maximum of 3000 IOPS. So I'm going to use the default 8 gigs of size for the root volume. And if you can notice here, the root volume cannot be encrypted because it contains the OS kernel. However, if you want, if we can add additional space, additional volume, and this is the mount point, and that can be encrypted. However, for this lecture we're not going to add uh, any volume, so we're going to use the existing default volume that comes along with the EC2 instance. Next, we're going to tag the instance. We're going to give a name, a value to the name. We're going to configure the security groups. We're going to select the security group which we had created a few minutes back, so which is this one. And as you can see, we can see the connection type, the protocol, and the port, and the CEDA. Now we can review whatever the settings we had configured. We can see the instance type, what we chose, that is 22 micro with one virtual CPU, 1 gig RAM, and it is on ABS only. And then we have the security group which we had created, and the security connection type which is SSH on the port 22. Then the instance details, it is on the virtual private network, and we have enabled termination protection, and it is on the identity access management rule of one which we had created earlier. And we can check the storage, and that's the storage that we had choose. It's of the type GP2 with the 8 gigs of allocation, and it cannot be encrypted, and the tag is EC2 CLI. Now we're going to launch the EC2 instance. When we click on the launcher, we have an option to create a private and a public key pair. Private key pair is just like a key and a lock. Private key is your key using which you authenticate that you are a valid or authorized user to access the instance, and the public key is basically like a lock which comprehends with the private key to establish or open the connection between your terminal and the instance actually. So I'm going to for this lecture I'm going to create a new pair. So I'm going to call this as I can download this key. You need to keep this safely. If anybody has access to this key, they would be able to access your EC2 instance. So you need to keep it very safely. Make sure you do not save this on your S3 storages on the AWS where you have publicly given access. So I'm going to launch the instance. So now your instance is running. Your instance is launching. Now we can view the instance. So this is the instance that we created. It is on the availability zone US East 1A, and by default to find out the region you can just eliminate, you can just remove the alphabet over here, and that is your region on which the availability zone resides. And those are the settings that we had set, and that's the public IP address that you can use to connect to the EC2 instance. Now while that is getting launched or started, we're going to launch the OS terminal and try to establish connection from the OS terminal to this EC2 instance. I'm going to pause the video for a minute until this gets started. Okay, now we can see that our EC2 instance is running. Now to establish connection, there are some connection strings that by default AWS provides us. When you click on the connect, you can see the entire connection string that we can use. So this is the connection string. I'm going to copy that. And this is my terminal. I'm going to go to my downloads folder where I have my private key.